Well, hello, business owner. Would you love to know exactly what your business needs right now to actually fix what's wrong, target your ideal next steps, instead of putting out fires or putting on band-aids? In working with my business clients, I share with entrepreneurs that business success can be super simple. Not easy, but simple. It's all about figuring out where you are now at point A, what real holistic success looks like, point B, and then backward engineering that into a solid strategy and the actions that you need to take this year, this quarter, this week, today, to head in that direction with traction and momentum while building yourself as a business leader along the way. The challenge is most people don't really know where they are at now. And they've dialed down that vision of success, point B, to be more realistic, so that rather than holistic success of time freedom, financial freedom, the lifestyle they want, impact, and legacy, they've dialed it down to survival, to getting by. This often means that they haven't really got solid goals. They're spending a ton of time working in their business instead of on their business. See, how you run your business is even more important than what business you're in. And really having a system for how you work on the business is key. As a Fix This Next advisor myself, I'm really excited to have Michalowicz, author of Fix This Next, here with me today to share how the Fix This Next process gives you a powerful way to work on your business so that you're building real momentum in your business. I think you're going to love Mike's calm, insightful wisdom and process. I suggest you turn off distractions and be ready to take great notes.
Thanks for joining me today. We are going to be talking about Fix This Next. The most important thing you can do for your business is to identify what it needs most from you. My name is Mike Michalowicz, and I am the author of Fix This Next. And what I wanted to do, along with my colleague here who did the introduction, is share some of the basics on how you can find your next fix, what your business needs from you. Now, I do want to invite you to turn off any distractions or email and so forth. I'll present for about a half hour or so, and I think it'll be of best service to you if you're all in on this. And I promise we'll find some game-changing stuff for your business. Let's start off, though, with a story that I think is relevant about a woman named Amanda Eller. This happened back in May of 2019. And you may not be familiar with her story, but you're definitely familiar with these circumstances. She was a hiker, and she got lost in the woods. Amanda Eller had hiked in the national forests of Hawaii for years, actually. I believe she was a resident of Hawaii. And on this one particular day, she was doing a 5-mile hike. So she parked her car, and she was following this path similar to a horseshoe. Halfway through the hike, she decided to stop and meditate in the woods, something that she also enjoyed doing. And she saw a tree that had fallen off the pathway, maybe 100 or 200 yards in. She went to the log, the fallen tree, meditated, and after 20 or 30 minutes, when she came out of her meditative state, she went back to a path to return to her car. And here's the key variable. She returned to a path, not the path. After a period of time, she felt disoriented, that she wasn't making progress in the right direction. She tried to double back. She found another path, which was not the path, and continued this for a period of 17 days. In fact, she had broken both her ankles. She was crawling. At one point, she was crawling along a boar's path, not a human path, but a boar's path. And you know what a boar is? Half feral dog, half mini rhino. And she was found by a search and rescue crew, lucky to be alive, starved and dehydrated at a stream, just trying to lap up water. She was found only half a mile from her car. And that's what we hear in these stories. Someone gets lost in the woods and they start moving in these circular patterns. They can't get out. And in some cases, they're so close to the escape, but never find it. And sadly, most stories don't end how Amanda Eller's does, that a rescue crew finds them alive. Sadly, so many people perish because of these circumstances. And I think it's a great illustration of what businesses experience. So many businesses continue this circuitous pattern, not progressing. the business is starving to move forward. And sadly, some of the businesses simply just perish. Well, what I want to share with you is another way to illustrate what we experience. I call it the survival trap. I'm not a real big fan of PowerPoints. I like to use paper, so I call it my paper point. And what I want you to do is to follow 3 simple steps with me. Step 1 is draw the letter A in the middle of a piece of paper and put a circle around it. And what A represents is where your business is now, point A. It can also be all of the apparent, so A for apparent, all the apparent issues and challenges and opportunities that are presenting themselves in your business. When we have these challenges and opportunities, we do the next step. We take or make a decision to get out of the crisis we're experiencing, to grab that opportunity, but to move forward. So draw 3 arrows in any direction that you choose that move you out of A, that move you forward in some direction, whatever direction you choose. And they can all be the same direction if you want, but in my case, I just drew these 3 arrows in 3 separate directions. But what these arrows represent are I could do this or that or another, but whatever I do in any circumstance, it'll get me out of the crisis. It'll move me forward to grab that opportunity and push forward. Now what I want you to do is the third and final step is draw the letter B in the bottom left corner of this piece of paper and put a circle around that. What B represents is what the business needs from us. We want to move from point A to point B. It's what the business needs most. And by definition of most, there can only be one thing. This is the one thing that the business will be best served by. So here's the question. Those arrows you drew that move you forward, how many of those arrows are pointing toward B? And I suspect, and because we're doing a webinar format here, I can't hear you, but I suspect it's a 0, maybe 1, 1.5. You give yourself a half point. The question is, why don't all the arrows always go toward B? If this is what the business needs most, that's what we need to nail next, and the next thing, and the next thing after that. The reason we don't draw our arrows toward B, it's very obvious. You didn't know where B was going to be. And if you don't know where B is going to be, how can you ever draw arrows toward it? And that's why businesses get stuck. What we know is the apparent. We don't know what the business needs next. So what manifests is this. We make a choice. We move in a direction, and we end up by escaping out of this apparent issue or crisis or grabbing this opportunity, we move forward to the next apparent issue, crisis, or opportunity. And you can make decisions on how to leverage that to move forward, and you move to the next. And you can make a decision to go in a certain direction, and you move to the next. And what you'll see is businesses start moving in this circuitous pattern of going from A to A to A, apparent to apparent to apparent. There's actually another scenario which is a little more insidious. Maybe you even experience this. Sometimes, just by happenstance, we draw an arrow from A toward B without knowing where B is going to be. And by definition, happenstance happens. What happens in this scenario is you move toward B, and this is how it kind of manifests. Have you ever experienced this in your business? It's like you're working so hard for months, likely years, trying to push this business forward, doing everything you can to improve the business, to serve your clients. You're working so hard, the hustle, the grind, the effort, the sacrifice. But then, one day, things just click. It's like things are just coming together. This is perfect. All the clients are paying on time. My colleagues and my employees, they're getting their work done. They don't need me. It's 12 noon and I'm done for the day. You know that day I'm talking about? It feels amazing. It finally all came together. And then the next day you return to work and it's a shitstorm. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, that's this scenario. Sometimes we do things that are of service to the business and move us in that direction. We feel that relief. Things start clicking. But if you don't know what the business needs and you simply move forward, you can end up in a new A. And if you end up in a new A, the new apparent issue, without knowing where B is, you take actions, decisions, you move toward a new A, and that circuitous pattern, lost in the woods, repeats itself again. This is the survival trap. This is an illustration of why so many businesses struggle. We don't know what the business needs next. So, how do we resolve that? Well, we're going to use a tool called the business hierarchy of needs. And if you have a copy of Fix This Next, you can just flip over the book to the back. And what we're going to explore is this chart here in the back called the business hierarchy of needs. But I want to give you a little bit of context first that I think is very important and relevant. What I want to show you is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, you may be familiar with that already. So many people are. So I'm just going to go with the basics. But Maslow was studying human needs. He came up with a hierarchy that was ultimately called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is for human needs, and it looks something like this. What he argued is, for humanity, the base level need we all have is called physiological needs. Hope I spelled it correctly. Physiological needs. Well, physiological needs are the base needs of survival. We need to breathe air and drink water and eat food. If we don't have that, our biology collapses. It is the fundamental need we have. But Maslow argued that we simply need this satisfied at an adequate level. And if you're following me by taking notes, emphasize that, adequate. What is necessary is adequate. Not excessive, but adequate. Excessive amounts of food, excessive oxygen, excessive water actually becomes detrimental. You can actually drink too much water and internally drown. It can mess the cells in your body. You can breathe too much air, hyperventilate, and it can get worse if you're taking too much oxygen. So we simply need adequate levels of physiological needs. If these needs are not satisfied, nothing else matters. Right now, as I'm presenting to you, if you can't breathe, you're eating a piece of food and it gets stuck in your throat, in your windpipe, you're going to start coughing. Your body's going to biologically respond to expel that because that is a base level need that's now compromised. Well, once these needs are adequately satisfied, we move to the next level needs. Next level, according to Maslow, is safety needs, which is protection from harm, protection from the elements. Even a base level of financial security is considered safety needs. So, as I'm presenting to you right now, there's a roof over my head. If it's freezing cold out, which is not today, thank God, but if it was freezing cold out, I would need heat to protect me. Could you imagine if I was outside in the freezing cold, shivering to death? I will respond biologically to seek shelter. But here's what's so interesting is that need is secondary to the base. So if I'm outside and I'm freezing to death, but some guy comes running up behind me, puts a plastic bag over my head and duct tapes it around me, all of a sudden now it's all about ripping that bag off so I can get air. That's become the priority. And that's between me and you. That scenario is like a 50-50. I live in New Jersey. That could happen here. But we must have our base level needs satisfied first. And if we're addressing a higher level need and then a base level need is compromised, we always revert back to the base. Underline that. If the base is compromised, always revert back to the base. So the base needs to only be adequately satisfied, but if it's compromised, you must serve it. Once it's adequately satisfied, we elevate to higher level needs. The next level need above safety was belonging. That's where you belong to a community. Above that, in his hierarchy, is esteem. The highest level needs are self-actualization, loosely defined as living one's life's purpose. And we can only aspire to higher levels when the base level needs are satisfied. When they're compromised, not adequately satisfied, we revert back to the base. This is happening all the time. We're moving around. This is not a ladder. You climb to the top and say, I've achieved self-actualization. You still need to eat food and breathe air. You still need safety. So if at any of those times those become compromised, we go back to the base until they're adequately satisfied and we can start climbing up again. So we ping pong around. Well, Maslow's hierarchy translates, interestingly, very closely into a business hierarchy of needs. You're an entity, a human entity, and our businesses are an entity too. And the parallel needs are there with one substantial difference. You and I are wired into ourselves biologically. We're not wired into our business. Our gut, our instinct serves us very well in our own survival. Doesn't serve us well in business survival. Yet so many business owners say, I trust my gut. Everyone's doing Facebook ads. I got to do some Facebook ads. Everyone's, running these campaigns. I got to do these same things. We start trusting our gut to run our business. It doesn't work in the business as well as our own survival. Because think about this. Say we were able to do this live and we're present on stage or whatever, and afterwards you and I say, hey, let's grab a beer real quick and catch up. And we walk a shortcut to the bar and we go down this dark alley. But walking into it, something doesn't feel right here. That's our senses triggering that. That's sight and hearing, smell, touch, taste, those senses trigger an emotion. It's like, turn around, I don't feel safe. And we better turn around because that gut instinct is probably correct. It's focusing on our survival. We are neurologically wired into ourselves. And that's why the gut works. We are not neurologically wired into our business. Yet so many business owners say, my gut is we need to do this, and I feel we need to do that. The key is to back our senses, our thoughts, with empirical data. The input for a human is sight, hearing, taste, touch. For a business, the input is data. And so you need to analyze the data. Well, let me show you the business hierarchy of needs, and then we can kind of see how it runs similar to Maslow's hierarchy, and you can deploy this in your business. So here's the business hierarchy of needs. There are 5 levels, just like Maslow's hierarchy. Oh, I messed up my paper point a little bit here. Fixed. And the 5 levels, just like Maslow's hierarchy, looks like a pyramid structure. The base level need is sales. So every organization foundationally needs sales. And the reason we need sales, it creates cash. I would say that's the oxygen for a business. If you've no cash flowing into your business, you don't have a business. It's not sustainable. Your business is suffocating. So sales are necessary. Now, we don't have time in this webinar, but a FTN advisor will direct you through this. There's actually 5 core level needs within sales. In fact, every level we're going to talk about has core level needs, which collectively 5 levels times 5 needs per level, that's 25 core needs at the most foundational definition of a business. Some businesses actually expand well beyond that, dozens more, hundreds more, but there's always a foundational 5. I call it the DNA of business. So when we look at sales, there's different elements of sales that generate cash, but sales need to be addressed. Remember I told you when I was talking about Maslow's hierarchy, it simply needs to be adequate. You need an adequate amount of sales to support the next level, not excessive sales. And in fact, at this very first level, so many business owners I've met get confused. So many business owners I've met have said, I can sell my way out of this. Sales cures everything. In fact, there's even pundits who say that. And that is a total lie. Sales does not cure everything. Sales are necessary, but it's not sufficient. Think about sales this way. Say you sold me your product or service. When you sell it to me, you now have an obligation to me. As your customer, you need to deliver on this. Now, if you sell more, you must deliver more. And the more you sell to more people, the more you must deliver, the more stress it puts on the organization. And if you own a small business as an owner, that's more stress on your shoulders. It's actually the more you sell, the more stress on an organization, the more difficult it becomes to operate unless you address the other elements of the business hierarchy of needs. So sales are necessary to generate cash, but they have to work in cooperation with these other levels. The next level above sales is called profit. And profit is the creation of stability. So that's the profit level. What profit is the creation, is the retention of cash in the business. So this is how it works. You have sales that come in, generates cash. This is what your business makes. Profit is what your business takes. And the goal here is to reserve cash for the health of the organization and to reserve cash for the health of the shareholders of the business, the owners of the business. Maybe that's exactly who you are. Fiscal health comes out of profitability, and a business needs that to have runway. If a business doesn't have profitability, it is hand-to-mouth survival. It's check by check. We constantly need to sell something to someone, keep this thing going. There's constant panic. But if there's a cash equity position, meaning there's cash reserves building, and the business owner is taking profit distributions, then there's comfort in that security, that financial security for the business and the financial security for the business owners themselves. That's what profitability does. It allows the business not to be reactive, but to be proactive because they have a runway of time. That's what profitability provides, hence the stability. Now, as you look at these 2 levels, you simply need to have, remember the word adequate sales to support profit. So always ask, I have 2 questions. Do I have any of the level and is it adequate? Do I have any sales and do I have adequate sales? Well, if you have no sales right now we know where you need to focus. You need to get some sales in because that will create cash. Then if you have sales, is it adequate to support profit? Well, the only way to investigate that is to ask questions about profit. Do we have any profit? If you have no profit and you have sales, you probably have a link issue here. It's likely you don't have a profit system or margins in place. It's probably not that you don't have enough sales volume, but it may be. But there's a link. So do I have any sales? Do I have adequate sales? Do I have any profit? Do I have adequate profit? When you can't pass the any or the adequate test, that's the level you're at. Sadly, like I shared, many entrepreneurs say, yeah, we have sales, but we don't have adequate sales. We need to sell more. And that is totally wrong. In many cases, the ones I investigated, they actually had adequate sales. They didn't have a profit system in place. They didn't have good margins, a good product mix or something like that. And that's what happens at the profit level. We keep asking this any or adequate question series all the way up the business hierarchy of needs. Once you can't pass one of those tests, that's the level you're at. Now we need to investigate it. But remember this, if you are an entrepreneur, do not trust your gut and say, well, I don't think we have enough sales. Prove it. Prove it. You've got to look at the data. The data is the knowledge and the input. It's the senses of an organization. And I'm happy to say your Fix This Next advisor can do this with you. Many entrepreneurs, myself included, are steeped in our own bias. I just believe I know what's going on with my business so well. But sometimes I'm totally wrong. It's hard to see because of my own bias. By bringing an outside expert in, they can evaluate the numbers and they can put logic to the emotion and find exactly where the fix is needed. And it may surprise you. The next level above profit is called order. Order is the creation of efficiency. I'm just going to put EFF for short. This is a creation of an efficiency throughout an organization. Now, some people are getting confused here. They say, but Mike, don't I need a sales system? Don't I need a profit system? And the answer is yes. All these elements play out at all times in the business. The question is, where is that weakest link currently in your business? Where are we going to concentrate our efforts? I'm not saying ignore your entire business. I'm saying where are we going to concentrate the next fix? What is the next most important thing? In fact, while you're focusing on bringing more efficiencies into your business, you still got to sell. You don't just stop selling. Right now, if we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you may be experiencing self-actualization or esteem, belonging, these kind of higher level stuff as we're learning knowledge and applying this to your business. But you may say, you're probably breathing right now, right? You definitely are. It's a subconscious behavior. It's still happening. So these elements are happening automatic. It's just where we're concentrating our attention at the moment. So we have to put the majority of our attention maybe at the order level. But people say, can I work on order before profit? Yes, but you need sufficient profit in order to provide those efficiencies. Think about it. Say you have sales coming in, you have no profitability, and now you're like, I'm going to start building systems. How can you build systems because you're surviving check by check? You have to just keep on selling and selling and selling. There's not enough time to bring efficiency because you can't pay or afford to build that efficiency. It's just deliver by hook or crook and sell more. Proper efficiency can only achieve when there's runway, when we have time to work on the business because the business has created stability for it. That's why the order level comes after profit. Again, you're going to ping pong around. You'll work on some efficiency. When you bring more efficiencies, that may support the ability to sell more. When you're selling more, we can extract out some more profit, allowing more efficiencies and so forth. So you will bounce around. This is not a ladder. You're not climbing to the top and kind of wave to your friends up there. You will move to where the next need is, where the weakest link is. Above order, the next level is called impact. Impact is the creation of transformation. So I just put abbreviation of trans there. Impact is where your clients, when they experience you, they say, this has changed my life, and they mean it. And this is not the one-off. I strongly suspect you've had clients say, wow, this has been a game changer, or this has changed my life. That's wonderful. But the impact level happens systemically. This is where you consistently hear from clients saying, this has been amazing. My life will never be the same. My identity has even changed. One of my favorite examples, my go-to example is Harley Davidson. I don't know if you've ever had a motorcycle. I haven't. I love, though, Harley Davidson. There are so many different companies you can buy motorcycles from. Kawasaki, I think, Suzuki, BMW, Indian, and it goes on. And there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of custom models out there. But Harley Davidson has something particularly special about it. When people own a hog, when they own a Harley, they are part of a family now. People are tattooing the company logo on their shoulder. Could you imagine your company logo, all your clients are tattooing it on themselves? That, my friends, are extraordinary impact, where it's happening systemically. It means something beyond the transaction. Impact is transformation, and this is where you've gone beyond transactions. These are transactions at this level, and then you become transformational. Transactions, of course, still happen, but it's transformational for the client. The highest level is legacy. Legacy is the creation of permanence. I just put perm here briefly, but legacy is where you build a business that is intended to be of service beyond you. It's, in fact, one of my favorite sayings, I met a guy named Tom Wilson. He came to me and said, Mike, there was a day I woke up and realized I'm not a business owner, and I never have been, even though he owned a business for 25 years. He says, I'm a business steward. That's the key. Legacy is where you realize it's always been about the business and the continuance of the business. We are just a cog in the wheel, and it's a privilege to be the owner or someone who started it, but it never really was about us. You see, Tom Wilson started a company called Eco Filtro based out of Guatemala City. And what they do is they make these these clay pots that are infused with silver that can hold, 5 gallons of water. They purify water. I don't know if you've ever been to Guatemala. It's a beautiful country. Guatemala City is a beautiful city. And around it is an impoverished community, the rural area. The people are extremely poor. And the quality of water, among other things, is horrid. It's bacteria-ridden. It's just laden with things that you can't digest or consume. Yet, of course, we all need water to survive. Well, what the population does, I think the average worker makes $1 a day, just to give you some context, so $30 a month. They use the large portion of that money to buy firewood, $15 to $20 to buy the firewood necessary to boil the water so that the water is digestible. So it's a hand-to-mouth living because the remaining money you have is used for food and you're just getting by. Well, this invention that Tom sells, Eco Filtro, sells clay pots. And I want you to be aware of this. They don't give these to the community. They sell it at a profitable level. You see, because he has a responsibility, and you do too, to sell profitably and efficiently, because that brings about sustainability. If you just give stuff away, at a certain point depletes who you are, and the whole thing comes crumbling down. That's what not-for-profits do. So he sells these profitably and sustainably and builds them very efficiently, which allows to have impact and ultimately has formed a legacy for that company. Pot, I think it sells for like $40. So you have to save a lot of money to do this. But when you buy one of these clay pots, now you don't need to buy firewood. So now you have money left over. In fact, some people start working with their own neighbors. Like someone will buy a community pot, or they'll collectively buy it together. And now a whole community doesn't need firewood for 5 or 6 homes. And now those individuals save the money because they're not spending the $20 or whatever on firewood. After a few months, they can buy their own clay pot. And now they have purified water. And Tom actually demonstrated this system to me. It's amazing. You can pour in this noxious water and out comes crystal clear, like I'm drinking right now, crystal clear water. So they've changed this community. But here's what was most fascinating. As this product became more and more popular and it spread throughout the countryside, there was a study going on. These always are happening by satellite systems for air quality. And these are all over the world. But this research team noticed that in Guatemala, of all places, the air quality was improving significantly. So they sent out a ground team to look at this. And that's when they discovered Tom's clay pots and that people weren't burning wood, meaning adding the pollutants to the air. So not only was he serving better water, he was cleaning up the air for our globe. That's when Tom woke up and he said, oh my gosh, this is something that must live on regardless of me. I'm not an owner, I'm a steward. That's the legacy level. Now, what you may notice or may have not noticed is that the first 3 levels of the business hierarchy of needs, I'm going to put BHN at the top here so you know, are what I call the get stages And the last two levels are the give stages. And so how this works is you need to get sales, you need to get profit, and get order in your business in order to be able to have impact and legacy. You can't skip these levels. My mom used to say, Mike, you have to give to get. No, you need to get in order to be able to give. You can't give unless you have sustainability. And these first three levels are sustainability. And I want you to know that you may have moved your business forward and you're focused on impact and legacy, but you can't have as big of an impact as you want if you don't go back to the base and expand it. This is like building a structure. If you were going to build the fifth story of a building, you wouldn't start a 5-story building. You wouldn't start at the fifth story in thin air, come collapsing down. Nor would you build this massive foundation of sales and put a little tool shed of profit above it because it would collapse within it. It works relationally. As you want to grow higher, bigger, stronger, you work your way up, you build the foundation at the base again. And sometimes circumstances present themselves, you got to go back to the base. When COVID happened in 2020, I was March 15th was kind of the lockdowns started in 2020. Companies responded. And I don't care if you have a business that does $100,000 in revenue or 100 million or billion. It doesn't matter what size you are. All businesses have this common DNA of the business hierarchy of needs, including Amazon. March 15th, they started these shutdowns. Amazon was focusing on impact levels and stuff. They were inventing new products, autonomous cars they're working on and so forth. But immediately they realized the core essential business had a sales problem. And the sales problem was the products we were buying changed. We moved to essential items. They changed their Prime program to focus on essential items. In 2020, Amazon had I think it was 23 or 24% product sales growth rate, their fastest growth in years, because they adjusted to a new need placed upon them, went back to the base. Always start at the base and say, do we have any? Is it adequate? And they said, yes, we have sales, but it's not adequate to support the next level of profit to continue forward. We have to reinvent the product mix, and they built back up to be stronger yet again. We have the exact same opportunity. I also want to share with you, there's this thing called an Omen, and I'm only going to talk about this very briefly. This is an ideal thing to address with your advisor. So your host for today's call, I encourage you to speak with them and help you analyze this. And they'll go through this with you and use empirical data to pinpoint where you are, and they can help you strategize an Omen. Once you identify what need you have, maybe you don't have enough profit margin, for example, you have to set an objective. Well, the objective is very simple. I need to improve my profit margin. M stands for the measurements. The measurements are back to the objective. How do I know I've achieved my objective? If I move my profit margins from 7% to 15%, I know I've achieved it, or whatever it may be. That's what the measurements are. The last two elements are where so many people struggle. A lot of business owners set the objective and measurements, but to set and forget it. We need to improve sales this year. And then at the end of the year, oh, we didn't. We got to improve sales next year. So E stands for evaluation frequency. It is evaluating our progress on this. This system identifies the weakest link in your business, the next thing that must be fixed, where you must concentrate your efforts. The other elements work on automatic, but this is where we need to concentrate our efforts now, and then here, and then there, or whatever it may be. But as we concentrate our efforts on this, we go through an evaluation process. Every week, or whatever the frequency is, you check in to see how you're doing on what objectives you set. And this is a calendared event. It's a meeting, and I definitely do it with someone else. You can try to do this alone, but it's so easy then to skip. Do it with a confidant, do it with an advisor to guide you through this and say, where do we stand? Why are we making progress, or why are we not making progress? And what is not working and what is working, to keep pushing that thing through. The last letter, N here, stands for nurture. Nurture, we give ourselves the ability, the flexibility to adjust and change as we move on. As we go through this, were the objectives and measurements we set originally the right ones, or are they not? I have been studying businesses ever since the COVID pandemic now, back in 2020. Gosh, time flies. But when the COVID pandemic hit, there was this divergence of small business and Main Street. So Wall Street took off. Main Street is the one who collapsed. And it's just been this weird kind of transition period. I studied every recession back to the Great Depression and found that there's a common denominator, that we come out of the recession when small business is successful, when small business thrives. And it always does. The question is, who's going to select themselves to be the ones who thrives? Because I think it is small businesses' choice to say, we're going to push forward and be successful. I know this is the pathway. I'm convinced of it. I think you have the right to say, today is the day I commit to moving forward. Today's the day I'm going to be the business that has impact on our economy. Today's the day I'm going to achieve my vision and my dreams. And I want to invite you to do that with someone you trust, someone that's a confidant, someone that can guide you through the system. Certified Fix This Next advisors have gone through this process at the most elite level. If you've read my book, thank you so much. But I also want you to realize that's the tip of the iceberg. A Fix This Next advisor has the experience and background to bring you through the system and to do it objectively. Not opinion, not like, oh, it feels like we should do this, but to analyze and find exactly what your business needs. It's like, hopefully you've never had to go to the hospital, but you don't walk in the hospital and say, where's it hurt? And they just start drilling in. They do diagnostics. That's the goal, to find where the real situation is, where the real problem is before they fix it. Similar to a gym, if you ever go to the gym or something, the trainers there ask you what you're looking to achieve. They have the experience of working with other individuals and other people and navigating the similar or same results. And they know how to go about it in a way that won't injure you, in a way you'll stick with it, and they hold you accountable. That's what your Fix This Next advisor will do for you. So now you have the tool set. I encourage you to, if you've drawn this with me, post this on the wall so you never forget this. Don't just trust your gut, jump on the next thing, move in circuitous patterns. Instead, find what your business needs fixed and then use the Omen to see your way through it. And again, I fully endorse a Fix This Next advisor, your host, in doing this with you. Good luck.
Wasn't that great? Are you ready to get off the hamster wheel and out of the survival trap? Take back control of your business, and while you don't want to be in a rut, you do want to get in the groove, right? Click the link below for free access to the Fix This Next assessment and find your business's next critical need. You'll receive your personal report via email at the end. Takes about 10 minutes to do it now and start to transform your business into a business that loves you back. As a bonus, you'll be able to book your free coaching session with me on this as well in your follow-up email. We'll dive right into where your business is and your critical need right now. Go click.